Well, welcome to the heart of the Bear Factory. My name is Rob Johnson. I'm your host, and this is Pawsitive Impact, the show that talks about teddy bears alongside making teddy bears with a purpose. Joining me today are the actual men that are behind the brand. I have Jerry McLean and Jimmy Banish. Gentlemen, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to your own show.
Thank
I'm
you.
just here to facilitate. I don't have any inner workings in this industry other than when Jimmy and I were talking about the idea for this podcast, we thought it'd be really interesting to bring in someone who has very limited knowledge of the industry. That way I can talk about things that might be a common question people that might be looking to enter into this industry may have. So I think for this first episode, what I want to do is start with an introduction. I want to go through an origin story of how this entire organization came to be. So Jerry, I want to start with you. So you are the founder of the company, and I want to know just how did this all come into existence?
It's a pretty funny story. About 24 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I had retired early, sold one of my companies, and we went up to Mackinac and on a vacation with another family. There was a product similar to this, a build-your-own plush type of product, and my wife and daughter at that time, they used to love to shop. So the other family we were with used to.
I was going to say, did that go away? Like,
Yeah.
when does that happen? I'm just curious.
So the other family was ready to go, and those two were nowhere to be found. So I had to go through this outdoor mall up in Mackinac and find out where they were. And I looked and I saw this big line out this building, and I wanted to know what it was. Being in business pretty much my whole life, I wanted to see what this was. I walked inside, I saw them in line, didn't pay too much attention to them, and just took in what was going on, what was this thing about. And as I did watch, I learned a lot about what I was wanting to do. Walked out of the building, they came, we started talking about it on the drive home from Mackinac about should we do this. My daughter loves stuffed animals, so she had a whole house full of them, and so it was funny how the correlation between us potentially going into this business and my daughter loving animals, stuffed animals, it really panned out. So I used a lot of my expertise in business out of China, and once we did start, we went to our first trade show in Atlanta, Georgia, and we wrote $1 million of product we didn't even have. So that was the launch of the company. We had ideas, we had a product, and then we designed a whole product line. We designed the first edition of our stuffing machines, which was like a Thomas the Train car, with train cars, with cabooses and things like that. That would, one would house the clothing, one would house the plush, and one would house a cash register. And they would move those out throughout a lot of the theme parks around the United States.
So I want to back up to the conversation. So you're driving home from Mackinac. Yeah. What is going through your head? Are you certain that this is what I have to do, or is it more of like an investigatory thing where you're just looking at we're going to feel this out?
Well, usually once I see something, I know pretty much right away that I'm going to do it. And the first thing is okay, where do I get a stuffing machine? What is this? How is it made? What's the inner makings of it? And I had to source that before I could really move. And looked all over the United States, and first started out with a company out of Idaho, and we've moved on from there to now making our own stuffing machine. So it was a process, but it was a process that had to stop and start and stop and start, because we didn't control our own destiny at that point. And as we started to own our own IP, our products, our stuffing machines, that's when the company really started to move forward.
So from that drive home from Mackinac to that first trade show in Atlanta, what's the time?
Well, it was 6 months. I mean, literally people wrote for machines right then and there. Now, I already had contracted a company to do the first stuffing machines. Went okay, a lot of issues, probably the R&D wasn't quite done good enough at the beginning, but it was good enough to get us started. And then we started to control our own destiny as we did. So it was one of those things where I got to move, and I have to move right away, and if I don't, I'm in trouble. So in business, once you get a little spur in you've got to move quickly. And this was an industry that was pretty hot at the time. It was at the beginning stages. Everybody in the United States, every mall, any A or B or C mall wanted this in inline stores. All the theme parks wanted it. So it was really a very advantageous move that we made.
And what year was it?
That was in 2000.
In 2000.
And then we started it in 2001.
Okay. So I know the first year of any business has a lot of entrepreneurial fear. Was there any of that for
No.
you when you started? You just knew?
No,
Tell Rob about going down to Florida and when you sold all those stuffing machines.
So
This is one of my favorite stories. What's great about, I love hearing the stories because there is no like blueprint, like all these stories is basically just like fake it till you make
Well, it's
it.
the Wild West probably at
It
that
was,
point,
it
right?
was.
Because there's no roadmap for this is how you execute a store like this. It's all brand new.
Yeah, and we get a lot of customers, that come to us and ask us questions like, how's this? How'd you know to do that? It's like, we didn't know anything. Jerry figured it out, and he took what he figured out and ended up handing it over. But I love this story.
well, we went down, I got a call, it was for an outdoor mall in Miami, down near South Beach. And I went down there and I meet with the person, and he says, okay, I'm ready to go. I didn't even have to sell them. And he says, how many machines can I get? I go, well, how many do you want? And how much product can I get? I go, well, how much do you want? And so we went through that whole process. And I closed the deal right then and there. It wasn't any work at all. And then he goes, okay, how do I pay you? I go, well, you can send me a check or whatever. No, I'm just going to give you cash. So he whips out a bundle of cash. He pays me all money. I don't know what to do with it because I'm on the road. I'm staying in a hotel. So I buried in the bottom of the, tire compartment in the car and just figure it out from there. Then there was another one when I went to the East Coast and I sold 6 machines at one time because they were in 6 different malls, and they paid me cash. So that infusion of just money coming in allowed us to move very, very quickly in getting our line set up out of China.
So from the beginning, was it always the Bear Factory? And if so, where did
Yes.
that name originate from?
It was the Bear Factory all along. It's never changed. It was just something that, my daughter loved teddy bears. And so it was what's available name-wise, company-wise, identity-wise out there. And so that's what we came up with. We filed in the state of Michigan, and then we filed within the United States, and we own that IP worldwide.
So I want to introduce Jimmy into this conversation. So Jimmy, you serve as the Chief Operating Officer at the Bear Factory. Where does your story run into Jerry's, and how do you get involved in the business?
Keia, it's funny, people always ask us, Keia and I are high school sweethearts. Keia's my wife now and Jerry's daughter. And people say, like, well, how did you guys meet? We went to different high schools. I went to Heartland, she went to Howell. And we actually met on MySpace, like through mutual friends. So
Did you put her in your top 10? And
I was in my buddy's top 8, and she saw me and friend requested me, and the rest is history.
Nobody on the production team has a clue. Maybe Adam does, but no one has a clue what we're talking about.
No, not at all, 100%. But we met through that way, and we've dated for years. I was fortunate enough where I actually met Jerry like 6 months before I even met Keia, because my first job was at a golf course raking bunkers when I was 16, and my boss was Jerry's neighbor, Charles, and Charles had invited me over to lay sod, and for whatever reason, Charles introduced me to Jerry. He just pulls me up, hey, this is Mr. McLean. And they had a giant husky at the time, Nico, who I was terrified of. He was 90 pounds. and I like just wanted to have nothing to do with this dog. But 6 months later, Keia and I, it was like Christmas break. We met through MySpace. Went and saw Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, and the rest was kind of history. But I was fortunate enough where Jerry offered me a job that following summer, pulling orders on the floor when we were located over in off Haas Road in South Lyon. So I had been introduced to the Bear Factory at a really young age, just packing boxes of fiber and moving stock around, but literally started like at ground level, and worked the summers, here for some time, and then went off and did a little bit of college and worked at a sports complex for 5 years. And that was a startup, and that was really like my education, I would say. Like going and living a startup life like that was a lot, title sales and marketing, and I was like cleaning kids' puke up off the turf.
Sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Keep those turfs clear.
Yeah. But I did not want to come to Bear Factory. I did not want to come and do this. I didn't think.
Was it like post-traumatic stress from when you were a kid, like pulling orders on the floor, or what was the reason?
I think part of it was like I wanted to make my own way, and then the other part, I just wasn't interested in like teddy bears, and I didn't know, I didn't think there was like a lot of viability with it. I just was young and naive, and sports seemed so much cooler, and I really fought for a long time, and then left that sales and marketing job for another startup that was like an outdoor tech company that, as most startups happen, like it just kind of fizzled out into nothing. So I was, kind of standing there. I had moved a remote office into the Bear Factory's headquarters up in Wixom at the time, and Jerry, sat down and said, "All right, well, what are you going to do next?" I'm like, I'm not really sure. And he goes, "Well, there's room for you here, and I would like to look at giving this to you and Keia at some point in time, but there's a lot that needs to be learned. This is the best career move I think you could ever make, because running your own business, you're never going to learn anything. It's the most you're ever going to learn. And what I had told Jerry is, all right, well, if I come over, obviously there's a lot of mentoring that needs to take place, but I have no interest in running the business the way it is right now. We have to look at making investments and updating things, and be willing to put money back into the company to bring it up to date, and do a new website. Like my background was really digital marketing. Like there's all these things that I want to do. Like, is that something that is viable and feasible for us? And he said, as long as you listen listen to what I have to say, take that, and we'll discuss every move that you want to do, and I'll give you a shot. And as long as you keep batting 1,000, we'll keep moving forward. And fortunately, I'm batting almost 1,000. But as Jerry will joke around, like, I'm really good at spending money, and he's really good.
He's the best I've ever seen. The best.
Good thing he didn't find that tire compartment on the way back from Florida.
Maybe he did.
But what's interesting is if you grab one of the plushies, you'll see, me coming from a background in marketing for 15, 16 years, this is how people found us, was the bottom label. It was, Jerry really didn't do marketing. It was
No.
the
We didn't
quality.
have to. When we first started, we never did a dime, penny towards marketing. Everybody found us, and they knew us as the best product in the world market.
Well, it sounds like you'd be like, hey, do you want this? And they're like, we sure do. We want 8 of them.
It was, how many boxes can we get? Right. And literally we were shipping out pallets and pallets and pallets just to one customer, and to the point where we could not keep up. And that led, into the next phase for me of being an individual private owner and being invited into China, and we started our own factory. It was one of the largest plush factories in all of China at that time, and we named it after my daughter, so it was called Keia Crafts and Gifts. Okay. And nobody knew who we were, because that's what we like is our identity to be unknown. That way there we controlled our own destiny, because we rocking and rolling so fast, and people were coming on board so fast that we were already at 7 different locations, 7 different factories in China, and they still couldn't keep up. So we made a decision to invest, and I had to give 20% of the ownership to my management team to be able to be an individual U.S. citizen owning a company in China.
I see. So as time went on, it started in 2001, things progress. I imagine competition begins to build over time. And then at what point did you come into the picture, Jimmy, and start talking about, all right, well, obviously like when you were in high school, but beyond that, when you said, now we need to start making investments into whether it's digital marketing or diversifying the product line, when did all that take place?
Late 2017, early 2018 is when I came on and, started getting to learn the customer base, because my philosophy is always partnerships. Like, I love connecting people and networking, and rather than spend money on acquisitioning new customers, like, let's get to know existing customers and how can we build relationships and earn more business that way, because that's time, and time is money, but I know that it's appreciated. So I spent a lot of time the first 2 to 3 years just, who are our largest customers, who are our small customers. How did they find us? They found us because of the sewn-in bottom tag, like on the animal. Okay, well, that tells me that the product's great, not just good, but great. So I was around the business, but I didn't know the industry. And I took a lot of time to hear and listen to our customers, because we touch on a lot of different segments, Like, we're very consistent throughout the year, because of all these different industries that we work with, because at the end of the day, people love teddy bears. Like, there's always, there's the whole like branding side and marketing side of, being able to build brand messaging around, a character that might be specific to a company or a water park or an amusement park. But fundamentally, and people just love stuffed animals. We work a lot with colleges and universities, and 20-year-old kids go crazy for them. I think it's a nostalgic thing for them.
So 2 things that I want to look at as we wrap up our time here. The first thing is, Jimmy, when you brought the idea of this podcast to me, what was the original mission and vision for the podcast? Why are people going to be tuning in, every other week to learn more about this industry?
Yeah, a big thing for us is I love to educate our customers, because the more they know, the more successful they're going to be, and in turn, the more successful we're going to be. And we'd love to sit and chat with customers on the phone for hours on end and talk about war stories, what's going on out, I call it out in the field, at a retail level, like what's going on, what's popular, what are you hearing from kids and families. Like, I love exchanging those stories and getting a pulse on what's going on. And people come to us because we've been around for so long for just industry knowledge and expertise, and there's just only so many of our staff and only so many hours in a day that we can do that, and our customer base is so large. I thought this would be a great medium to be able to provide some of these intimate conversations that we have with customers on a much larger scale.
The potential for taking a lot of the questions that we're having to address on a daily basis over and over and over again, because there's so many new people still coming into the industry. So when Jimmy came to me about doing the podcast, again, not the direction that I would go, but it is the way that business is going and information is flowing. So I really said, let's take a look at this.
Yeah, and I believe too, we have a lot of Jerry's original customers that are still around, and even for us here in Livingston County, like Brighton Chamber of Commerce just Pam McConaughey retires. Now you have new blood coming in. There's a turnover. Like, my generation is really starting to take up management roles. We're starting to become the decision makers, and the same is for this industry. There's younger blood coming into the industry. So I think Jerry and I sitting down and having a lot of candid conversations, there's a lot of hard-learned lessons that have taken place over the last 23 years, and there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge that I love history. I'm all about nostalgia, but there's a lot of knowledge base that I want to make sure is preserved and maintained, and we don't have to relearn those hard lessons down the road, and providing that information to that next generation of, family-owned businesses that are doing plush or, running their own business that work with us. I just think that this is a great opportunity to mend, the last 25 years with the next 25 years.
Yeah, this is a very tough business in the regard that you have to very much stay on top of what you produce because it's coming in from overseas. And when you make a mistake and it shows up, it's not just a 1 or a 2 or a 3 day, issue. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 month issue. So if you didn't order correctly and, produce your product correctly out of China, then you're in a situation where, you've got to play catch up. And every day that you lose on maybe one of your best items, one of your best pieces of plush, your sales, really take a hit. So you really have to have managerial skills to be able to run a company like this. It's not like you can order it from the United States and get it here in 10 days. It's a 4 to a 6 month process. By the time we place an order, and we roll factories, as you can see, there's a lot of product in this warehouse, and we have to really manage that. In fact, we need to up our size by probably another 2/3 more than what we are right now, just to be able to handle the customer base, in a much even better way.
Well, one thing's clear, Jerry, is you started and facilitated a tremendous business here, and I'm excited over the next series of episodes to learn more about how that unfolds. Before we close, I want to talk about this segment. This is a, plush with purpose, and one of the things that was really unique to me when I first came here was every single animal that you have here, and you can see if you're watching this video on YouTube, this backdrop here, there's just a ton of different plushes here, but every single one has a story behind it. So Jimmy, this is the one we wanted to focus on this week. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, Rob, we like breathing stories and life into all of our plushies that we introduce. And because we were kind of talking about origin story and just kind of how the Bear Factory was founded, this is like a recent item, Araya the Arctic Fox, which is actually named after Keia and I's daughter, Araya. She's 19 months next week, and as far as we're concerned, we're making moves to make sure that there can be a third generation of owners for the business. And we picked a Arctic Fox specifically because one of my favorite outdoor brands is named Fjällräven. So they're a Swedish brand, I believe, and they make incredible outdoor gear and equipment that lasts a really long time. It's really high quality, and that's kind of our approach too. It's about quality over quantity, and really focusing on the care, time, and detail that goes into our product. So I kind of fuse like a little bit of my love for the outdoor brand that I really enjoy with Araya, our daughter, who's going to be the next generation of owners one day.
I love it. Well, Jerry, Jimmy, thank you both for your time. Certainly appreciate it. Looking forward to the next episode. And listeners, if you want to know more about the Bear Factory or the future of the podcast, be sure to check out all of the links in the show notes. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.